Now, the funeral for 22-year-old Amir Locke is set to be held later today in Minneapolis, with Reverend Al Sharpton leading the service. Locke was fatally shot during a no-knock warrant search executed by a Minneapolis SWAT team. The Locke family is speaking out, calling the incident, quote, an execution. The mayor has implemented a moratorium on no-knock warrants while the state investigates the shooting. NBC News correspondent Ron Allen joins us now from Minneapolis with more on what to expect. Hi, Ron. Good morning. So what do you think we'll see today? Will we hear from the Locke family during this funeral?
I would think so, yes. I would think there'll be a lot of personal tributes and remembrances of him, a 22-year-old man who, by all accounts, his family says was a good person and totally innocent and a victim in this whole circumstance. He was a DoorDash delivery man who was legally licensed to carry the gun that he had in his possession when the police stormed into this apartment where he was sleeping on a couch. It wasn't his apartment, it was that of a friend. And he was not the target of this warrant. The police were going after a cousin of his. And so in many ways, the family was emphasizing how this never should have happened. So, yes, we expect to hear from the family. We expect to hear from a lot of civil rights and activists for racial justice. We know that Reverend Al Sharpton is going to deliver the eulogy. The third time that he's delivered a eulogy in this town. In the case of George Floyd, Daunte Wright's funeral happened in this same church about a year or so ago. And we know that the officer who was convicted of manslaughter in Wright's case, Kim Potter, is going to be sentenced tomorrow. So there's a lot going on here in Minneapolis, and this continues. This case is seen as yet another example of a law enforcement officer using excessive force in killing an innocent young black man. So we'll hear a lot about that and a lot about how this continues to happen. And despite calls for reform, despite investigations, the family and many others are still very angry about what's happening in this town and in other places across the country.
And Ron, when we've seen these other police-involved killings of black men, we've seen what's also happened across the city, this fallout from them. How's the city responding so far to the death of Amir Locke?
A lot of focus is on these investigations. There are calls for the police chief, the interim police chief here, to step down. There are calls for the officer who fired the fatal shots to be fired and charged. That has not happened while the state and local authorities investigate what happened. There have not been massive protests in the streets here. There were some protests right after Locke's death on February 2nd, but there has not been a lot happening publicly out in the streets. A lot of it has been happening behind the scenes, but there is a lot of pressure on the Minneapolis Police Department to not only deal with this case and the individuals who were involved, the officer who fired the shots and the police chief, because of something she said after it happened and the way she's handled the case. But there are calls for reform throughout the department, and we know that that's all going on as well. So, again, a lot happening here as this funeral happens in a couple of hours' time.
All right, we know you'll be watching, Ron Allen. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.